You're driving home. Red and blue lights flash behind you. Your heart races. And in the next 60 seconds, you're about to make one verbal mistake that could cost you thousands of dollars, even if you're completely innocent. Every single day, drivers hand officers the exact evidence needed to escalate simple traffic stops into arrests, searches, and criminal charges. Not because they broke the law, because they said 5 wrong words at the wrong moment. I've analyzed over 300 traffic stop cases and reviewed Supreme Court rulings on police procedures and interrogation tactics. I've studied hundreds of body cam videos, and I've identified 5 phrases that destroy your legal protection faster than anything else you could possibly do during a traffic stop. I'll show you these 5 deadly mistakes, why they're so dangerous, and the exact words to say instead. This is educational content. For specific legal advice, talk to an attorney in your state. Let's start with the worst one. Mistake number 1. Can I just pay the ticket now? The mistake. Trying to speed up the process by offering to pay immediately. The scenario. The officer walks up. Before they finish explaining why they stopped you, you blurt out, "Officer, can I just pay the ticket now and we can move on?" Sounds polite and cooperative, right? Why people do it. You think showing willingness to accept responsibility makes the officer go easier. You believe cooperating means agreeing quickly. You want this uncomfortable situation over with as fast as possible. Legal reality. You just confessed. Can I pay the ticket means I know I did what you're about to accuse me of. That's not cooperation. That's an admission of guilt. Here's what most people don't realize. Paying a traffic ticket is pleading guilty. It goes on your driving record. Your insurance company sees it. Points hit your license. In some states, those points accumulate toward license suspension. And in court, that statement about paying? That's admissible evidence you knew you were violating the law at the time. Evidence problem. Body cam's record. From when lights activate. Offering to pay before the officer even states the specific violation shows you admitted guilt before you knew the exact charge. Prosecutors love this because it shows consciousness of guilt. Defense attorneys can't explain this away. The timestamp on the footage proves you confessed within the first 30 seconds of contact. Officer psychology. Officers are trained to let you talk. They know from experience that most people incriminate themselves within the first 30 seconds of interaction. When you volunteer to pay immediately, you just did their entire job for them. They didn't have to investigate. They didn't have to gather evidence. You confessed before they asked a single question. Correct move. Say nothing about guilt or payment. Hand over your license, registration, and insurance when asked. Then say exactly this. "I understand, officer." That's it. Those 3 words acknowledge the interaction without admitting anything specific. Why it works. Salinas versus Texas established you must explicitly invoke rights. Silence alone isn't enough to protect you, but you also don't have to volunteer information. I understand is legally neutral. It shows you're not being difficult while also not admitting to any specific violation. You're cooperating with the lawful stop without building the case against yourself. Bottom line, never ever mention paying a ticket during the stop itself. Wait until you're home, consult an attorney if the ticket is significant, and then decide whether to pay or fight. That payment offer at roadside is a confession recorded on body cam. That protects you from verbal self-incrimination during initial contact. But verbal admissions are only one way drivers hand over evidence to officers. The Supreme Court has recognized that your demeanor and spontaneous statements can create separate legal grounds for expanded investigation. Mistake number 2 is how most people destroy their credibility and create an admission through a single word they think shows respect, but which legally functions as an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Mistake number 2. I'm sorry, officer. The mistake. Apologizing for the alleged violation. The scenario. Officer approaches your window. Before they say a word, you immediately say, I'm so sorry, officer. I didn't mean to. Or, I'm sorry. I know I was going a little fast. Or you just repeat, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It's automatic. It's what polite, well-raised people do when they think they've done something wrong. Why people do it. You were raised to apologize when you make mistakes. You think showing contrition and remorse will make the officer sympathetic to your situation. You believe if you're nice and apologetic right from the start, they'll let you go with just a warning instead of writing you a ticket. You're trying to de-escalate the situation through excessive politeness. Legal reality. Legally, an apology in this context is an admission of fault. Courts across the country have ruled that saying I'm sorry during a traffic stop can be used as evidence that you knew you violated the law. It's not just being polite, it's confessing to whatever they're about to accuse you of. Some states have apology laws that protect apologies in medical malpractice cases or car accidents between private citizens. But those legal protections typically don't apply to statements made to law enforcement during traffic stops. Evidence problem. Body cam records you apologizing before the officer even explains what you allegedly did wrong. That footage shows what lawyers call consciousness of guilt. You knew you were breaking the law before any investigation happened. The footage timestamp proves you apologized within seconds of the officer approaching your window, before they conducted any investigation or asked any questions. Officer psychology. Officers are specifically trained to recognize various forms of admissions during traffic stops. The moment you say, I'm sorry, you've categorized yourself in their mind as someone who committed the violation they're investigating. They're much less likely to give warnings to people who've already confessed. Why would they exercise discretion in your favor when you've already admitted guilt? Correct move. Say, hello, officer, or good evening, officer, or simply, officer. Stay calm, stay polite, but stay firm in not admitting anything. Hand over your documents when lawfully requested. Do not apologize, do not explain, do not volunteer any information, why it works. Politeness without admission. You're being respectful, which officers genuinely appreciate for their own safety, but you're not handing them evidence to use against you in court. Pennsylvania versus Mims established that officers can order you out of the vehicle for safety reasons during any traffic stop. Your cooperation on legitimate safety measures is legally different from making admissions about violations. Bottom line, I'm sorry. In this context is legally equivalent to saying I did it and I know I did it. Never apologize during a traffic stop, no matter how polite you want to be. You've now avoided two different types of verbal confessions, but courts distinguish between these direct admissions, like payment offers and apologies, versus indirect admissions that come through explanation and storytelling. The Fifth Amendment protects against compelled self-incrimination, but it offers zero protection when you voluntarily start talking and explaining yourself. Mistake number 3 is the most common way drivers turn a simple traffic stop into a full-blown interrogation by giving officers investigative leads they didn't have before you started talking. Mistake number 3, volunteering explanations. The mistake. Explaining why you did what you allegedly did. The scenario. Officer asks, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" You respond, "I was rushing because my kid is sick," or "The sun was in my eyes," or "GPS didn't show the sign." Why people do it. You believe honesty and transparency will help your case. You think explaining the circumstances shows you're reasonable. You're trying to build rapport with the officer. Legal reality. Every explanation is an admission with an excuse attached. I was speeding because I'm late means I was speeding. I didn't see the sign because of the sun means I didn't see the sign. These aren't defenses. They're confessions with justifications that don't matter legally. Evidence problem. Body cams capture your explanation. Prosecutors now have admission and motive. The defendant stated they were rushing because their child was sick, demonstrating they knowingly chose to speed. You've literally built the case against yourself. Officer psychology. Do you know why I stopped you is an investigative technique specifically designed to get you talking. They want either a confession or something giving probable cause for additional investigation. Here's the dialogue. Officer. Do you know why I pulled you over? Wrong. I think I was going fast because I'm late. Correct. No, I don't know why you stopped me, officer. Officer. You were doing 55 and a 35. Wrong. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. I was just following GPS and... Correct. I understand, officer. Hand over documents. Say nothing else. Correct move. When asked, do you know why I pulled you over? Say, no, I don't know why you stopped me, officer. Don't elaborate. Don't explain. Why it works. You don't actually know their official reason until they tell you. This forces the officer to state their reason, rather than fish for your confession. Bottom line, explanations are admissions. Stop talking after handing over documents. Those mistakes involve what you say. But there's another constitutional protection most people invoke incorrectly, and doing it wrong makes things worse. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable seizures, but you need to know the difference between ending a seizure and challenging an arrest. Mistake number 4 is using the wrong legal phrase, signaling you don't know your rights. Mistake number 4, am I under arrest versus am I free to leave? The mistake, asking if you're under arrest instead of if you're free to leave. The scenario, the officer has your documents. They're walking to their car. 10 minutes pass. You call out, "Officer, am I under arrest?" Why people do it. You think if they say no, you can leave. You want clarity about your situation. Legal reality, am I under arrest, is wrong. There are 3 encounter types: voluntary, you can leave; Terry stop/detention, temporarily not free to leave but not arrested; and arrest in custody. Most traffic stops are Terry stops, detained but not arrested. When you ask about arrest and they say no, you still don't know if you can leave. Evidence problem. Asking about arrest suggests you're thinking about leaving before they're done, which can be interpreted as suspicious. Officer psychology. Officers know the encounter types. When you ask about arrest instead of detention, it signals you don't understand your rights, making you easier to manipulate. Rodriguez versus United States ruled officers cannot prolong stops beyond the traffic mission. But if you don't invoke that, they'll extend it. Correct move. Ask, "Officer, am I free to leave?" This forces them to tell you your detention status. If yes, leave. If no, you know you're detained. Why it works. Terry versus Ohio established reasonable suspicion standards. Am I free to leave? Invokes the legal framework limiting detention. If they say no, follow up. I understand. I do not consent to searches, and I invoke my right to remain silent. Bottom line, am I under arrest is wrong. Am I free to leave is right. Now you know how to invoke detention rights under Terry and Rodriguez, but knowing the law and arguing it roadside are different things. The Fourth Amendment sets constitutional boundaries, but officers don't appreciate being lectured. Mistake number 5 is arguing legal precedent when you should be documenting violations. Mistake number 5. My friend/lawyer says you can't do that. The mistake, arguing with the officer about what's legal based on what someone told you. The scenario, officer asks to search your car. You say, "My friend who's a lawyer says you can't search without probable cause," or I know my rights, you're violating the Fourth Amendment, or this is illegal and I'm suing you. Why people do it. You think citing law stops illegal behavior. You believe officers will respect legal knowledge and back down. Legal reality. Arguing legal principles roadside rarely works and usually escalates. Even if you're 100% correct, the place to argue is court with a lawyer, not 2 a.m. on the highway with an officer who has a gun and qualified immunity. Evidence problem. Body cams show you being argumentative. Prosecutors use this to paint you as uncooperative. Your argument becomes evidence of demeanor, not legal knowledge. Officer psychology. Officers don't like being told how to do their jobs by civilians citing half-understood concepts. Even if you're right, this triggers defensive reactions. It turns stops into power struggles. Officers have the power then, you don't. Here's how it escalates. Officer: I'm going to search your vehicle. Wrong. You can't. I know the law. You need probable cause. My lawyer told me about the Fourth Amendment and Rodriguez versus United States and... Officer: feeling challenged. Step out of the vehicle now. Correct. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. I'm not resisting, but I clearly state I do not consent. Stay calm. Document everything. Correct move. State clearly. I do not consent to searches. I invoke my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer. Then comply with lawful orders while documenting violations. Why it works. This preserves legal rights for court without escalating. If they search anyway, that's potentially illegal. Your attorney challenges later with a motion to suppress. But you stayed safe. Bottom line, assert rights. Don't argue law. Save legal arguments for court. Memorize these, practice them, use them. Phrase 1. Am I free to leave? Establishes detention status. After the officer returns documents, ask this. If yes, leave immediately. If no, you're detained and can invoke further rights. Terry v. Ohio protects you from extended investigative detention. Phrase 2. I invoke my right to remain silent. Salinas v. Texas requires explicit invocation. Say, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. This stops questioning. Don't say, maybe I should stay quiet. Be direct. Phrase 3. I want a lawyer. This ends interrogation under Miranda v. Arizona. Once you invoke counsel, questioning must stop. Say clearly, I want to speak to my lawyer. Phrase 4. I do not consent to searches. Protects Fourth Amendment rights. Officers may search anyway if they claim probable cause, but stating you don't consent preserves your ability to challenge the search in court. Say, I do not consent to any searches. Write these phrases down. Put them in your phone. Screenshot this. Print them. Keep them in your glove compartment. When adrenaline is pumping, you won't remember complex legal strategies, but you can remember 4 short phrases. Practice saying them calmly. Practice until it feels natural. Officer, am I free to leave? I invoke my right to remain silent. I do not consent to searches. Stay calm. Stay polite. Stay firm. Asserting rights with attitude is dangerous. Calm and respectful while refusing questions equals protected and safe. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Here's the core principle. Cooperation does not mean conversation. You can be respectful, polite, and safe while protecting your legal rights. Those 4 phrases give you a framework for any traffic stop. Remember, am I free to leave? I invoke my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer. I do not consent to searches. This is educational content only. Always consult with a qualified attorney in your state for legal guidance. If this helped you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You just learned how to protect yourself from verbal self-incrimination. But there are other critical constitutional protections most people invoke incorrectly. I break down those protections and when they actually apply in the next video showing on screen now. This builds your complete legal framework. Know your rights, use your rights, stay safe out there.